a very important masterclass that I think we really can't get enough of in terms of gaining knowledge and experience at any given time. A small business is looking to create value, to scale, or to just enhance itself in one way or another. And we are always having to deliver pitches to those that we've identified as entities that can fund us in one way or the other. And so I think having that kind of having that really bedded down is something that is very important in an SME's life, because it very often spells your survival or not. If you're able to clinch that funding, then you get to move to the next level, and you get to live to see another day as a business. So this is very important. We thought that this would be very close to your hearts as well, and hopefully we will be able to deliver the value that you need. Let's just get to exactly what we are here for. The importance of pitching, and what is the definition of pitching, right? So usually when I do a one-on-one, I want to go around the room. I want to find out exactly what do people think pitching is. I'm going to pick on you, Ntsiki. Can you maybe advance some kind of understanding of what pitching is?
Pitching is actually selling your business, attracting investors, enticing the ears of the ones who will be putting money into your business,
right?
To have basically that's what it is. It's just selling your business to the investors for them to be able to come on board to help you help you into I don't know how to put the
You're on the right track. You're on the right track to help you to advance from where you are, perhaps.
To advance from where, yes, that's the right word, yes. To advance from where you are into the next level of your business. So basically it's just bringing in the investments to advance your business, yes.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much for that, Ntsiki. You are right. Pitching does involve an element of sales, an element of selling yourself. Because I remember actually listening to a webinar that Vusitembe Kwayo put up, and he was adamantly saying, if you cannot sell, you have no business being an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur has to be able to sell their business, has to be able to put themselves out there in front of people and get themselves buy-in from people that are important to the business. And that would involve also funders who would then fund the business to get to the next level. So I've taken two views to what the definition is. I'm going to give you the one part which is a generic one, and it is to throw, usually with careful aim, right? That is what pitching is. That's what this girl is doing on the right there, right? You hold the ball when I think we all know the game of cricket. You hold the ball, you want to aim for that wicket. You want the person to drop the bat, to not hit the ball, but for the ball to go for the wicket so that the person can be out. You are doing it intentionally, deliberately, right? So that was what pitching is. Similarly, when we are in front of people, we're making a bid to obtain a contract, or other business. That is what pitching is, to really ensure that we encompass everything that we are about so that we can push the agenda that we are there for, right? Why is it so important? And what does it do? When you pitch, especially to an audience that never really knew who you are about, you influence how they then later think about you. And that influences their decision. If it's in front of a buyer, you influence them to make a sale, to make a purchase, sorry. And in this context, because we're talking about funders, you influence them to want to know a little bit more about you so they can avail their funds to you. The decision that you want to influence there is for them to open their purses so you can also have access, to have support, right? And it gets you the support that you need. It secures the investments that you require, right? So I think just to give you an overview of why it is important, it is very, very important for us to understand who we are pitching to, what we are pitching about, and these are the results that we need to be mindful of in terms of what we will be getting at the end of our pitch. So, what are the winning elements and the key elements of a winning pitch, right? When you walk into a room, and sometimes when you are sending a proposal, that is in itself a pitch. What must it contain? What should you be putting across for someone to immediately want to pay you any attention, right? Some of the things that I think you should take cognizance of: have very clear objectives of what. Make sure you on your own are very clear. I always love to listen to Dragon's Den and Shark Tank. I listen to Dragon's Den more than I watch Dragon's Den more than I watch Shark Tank. And the things that I pick up there are, it's very consistent all the time, that when those dragons ask questions, they want to understand what are the objectives of you coming to ask for the funding you are asking for, right? And also, they need to also understand what is the purpose of this money that you are going to be getting. What's the purpose of you making that pitch? Very, very important. Very, very important thing that you need to also understand is that the person on the other end is a human being, right? Funders are human beings. They've been through their own journeys. And very often when you tell a story that is relatable, they sit up, they want to listen. You pique their interest because you are now speaking their language, right? It makes your pitch a bit more engaging than just going through a whole line of figures, a whole line of facts, and without that human element to it. Very, very important for you to inject the human element that says, this is what I'm bringing to the table. This is the journey I've been on. This is how this business came to life, or this is how we feel we can impact the space that we are operating in. And please give us an audience, and even more so, give us the backing that we need to be able to effectively finish narrating and telling this story. Very important for you to have to be cognizant of that. Very important. It's not advisable to be vague. Again, I'm going to make reference to Dragon's Den. Every time that somebody goes in front of those dragons, they get grilled about what's the return on investment, what's your profit. They always ask, as a matter of course, what's been your revenue What's been your gross profit? What's your net profit? What are your costs? Have you done any marketing? What percentage of marketing is what have you done vis-a-vis your revenue? All of those things, and things around how big is this market, and what percentage do you expect to command of that market? All those are things that should be at your fingertips. And how you do that is to ensure that you research properly. And of course, you are the person that understands the business or the venture that you're getting into. That's what you need to have at your fingertips all the time. And bear in mind that some of the people in the audience actually know the business very well that you're doing, that you're getting into, and you can't pull the wool over their eyes. So make sure you've got a good story to tell. Right. And then at the end of it all, have a very strong call to action, which really ensures that you are very clear about what it is you're expecting the person on the other end to do after listening to your pitch, right? Very often it's naming the amount that you need and naming how you would like it to be um, uh, dispersed to you. Because in some instances, you're sitting in front of funders who, of course, we would have researched who they are. You're sitting in front of funders who are going to be dispersing grants. Sometimes people are, the funders are those that do half grant, half loan. And be clear in what your expectations are. Expectations are. Have a very strong call to action that says, this is my story, this is what I'm expecting, and I'm expecting you to do X, Y, Z at the end of it. Very, very important. Key elements of a winning pitch, going over, continuing with that theme. The very first thing when you come to a pitch, folks, is that you need to have what we call a hook, a very strong opening when you stand in front of, if it's a live pitch, when you stand in front of your audience, you need to attract their attention right from the onset, right? People gravitate towards you based on how you present yourself. If you are one person who is drifting away, or you start around before you get to the point, they most people will become bored, or they switch off, or actually even worse, get irritated. So very important, walk into a room, you have an opening hook. It can take various forms, right? So you need to be very careful and understand who you are talking to first before you actually decide on how you are going to execute that opening or the hook that we're talking about. Some of the ideas that you can look at is highlighting your USP right from the start. When you have when you make your statement, um, start with a compelling statement that really ensures that you can show that your project is different from others they've listened to, right? Very, very important. Emphasize how innovative this project is. Emphasize the fact that, I mean, you can be one person that's doing a business that several other people are doing, but emphasize the one thing that sets you apart right from the onset. That could also attract attention with your audiences. Also, another way that you can start your opening or your hook is to quantify the impact of your of your business, right? I'll give you an example. For example, you could say, 20% 20% of managers don't understand how to impact their staff. With this product, right, they can actually we can change that phenomena to having 100% buy-in of managers from their staff, or something like that. Or what you could also come in with is it has actually come to our attention that each year businesses are losing 50% of their business to undefined expenditure, right? Which they are not able to quantify or monitor. With this tool, we can ensure that you are on top of your game at any given time. You understand each and every single expenditure that you are making, and this will then increase your efficiency by at least 80%, right? So you're quantifying the impact and then is able to pique the interest of whoever you are pitching to. Then, of course, the funder on the other end would want to know how your product can be rolled out and what you need, etc. So very important to actually understand the impact and quantify it so that it has effect. So that's another way that you can open your pitch. The other thing that you could also do, and I think I did it in one of my examples, is to address the problem. Identify what the problem is for that particular industry that you are creating this product or service for, and then clearly articulate what your solution is. And that becomes your your opening hook. A very good way of doing it, especially I've seen that a lot with in sort of industries where there's a lot of technical stuff that needs to happen. And then also look at teasing the solution. And by this, we mean you briefly introduce how your project is going to address the problem. And then also you invite the audience to delve deeper into that proposal through that teasing of the solution. Very, very sort of enticing way of starting your proposal, your pitch. So these are elements, these are ways that you can start your pitch. These are ways that you can execute your opening of the pitch. Also, again, use a captivating tagline. I think you could. There's quite a few businesses out there, and I hope yours has the same too, where you can come in and use your tagline, right? And then that then makes people sit up and think, okay, now what is this about? Then once you've done that and explaining what it is that you mean by that tagline. Second thing that we need to look at is when you, in the systematic delivery of your pitch, now you need to look at the problem identification and your statement. That's generally the second thing that comes up, right? Usually you need to define what the problem is and then be able to give a solution. For example, I'll give you this example. The rapid decline of bee populations due to pesticide use threatens global food security and biodiversity, right? That is the issue that you have seen. That is the problem that you are trying to address. What is the significance of this problem, right? This decline poses a significant risk to food security and biodiversity, impacting the livelihoods of farmers and consumers alike. So you're taking your audience on a journey, so they are with you. They start thinking like you. They start understanding why you're even bothering with this business that you're about to pitch to them, that you need them to fund you for, right? You start talking about who's affected, right? And that becomes very often who your market is, the beekeepers, farmers, and consumers, right? And then now you start creating what is the desired state. That's when you now start teasing the issue around now creating some sort of a solution. We need to achieve a sustainable agricultural system that supports bee population. So you're creating this story now, you're creating the scene. Then you make the impact statement. Addressing this issue will help maintain a healthy ecosystem and support food security, right? So you're taking your audience through that journey so they understand, they now have this full picture, right? Now we're getting to the solution, right? When you then come here, you are now going to define what the solution is. And very often that's when you are now starting to describe what your service or product is all about. And that's where the real business is now. Our service or product ensures a multi-pronged approach that combines sustainable farming practices, bee-friendly crop management, and community-led conservation projects to restore and protect pollinator populations. So now we are addressing those audiences that we identified as being impacted by the problem, right? The farmers, the beekeepers, the consumers, right? About significance of the solution or the value proposition that you have. And why is this solution, why does this solution matter? And why is it the right approach for this business? So you need to justify yourself, because remember what you're trying to do is, and I often always advise the SMEs that I mentor to say, very often before a question is asked, try to answer it, because the way that you can, and then also the way that you know what question is going to be asked is if you've done enough research and you have tried to get into the mind of your audience and understand what it is they'd be expecting and the kind of questions they'd ask in order to get an understanding of what you are talking about. So this would be part of that process. And creating the significance of the solution, you start talking about it. This solution not only safeguards pollinators, but also ensures resilient food production systems, supports biodiversity, and strengthens farmer livelihoods, right? So if you throw back from the previous slide, you will see that we identified a problem and how that problem is significant, who is impacting. And now our solution is talking to those problems in the pitch that we are making. Then we start talking about what the differentiators are. How are we different from the competition? So in any business that we do, it's important to understand that if you've thought about something, it's possible that 3 or 4 other people have also thought about it. So you need to always counter that and to understand, if 3 or 4 other people have thought about it, what is it that I could do that is possibly different from what they're doing, right? Nsiki, you spoke about being in construction. You spoke about offering construction services and so on, right? And I can guarantee you on every single ESD program that I'm on, I find at least 4 people in construction. I'm actually on a program that is primarily about people who are in construction and construction service, right? Each of those people is actually making money. How are they doing it? It's because they've been able to differentiate themselves and been able to stand out from the competition through, pushing a certain USP. What are the unique features or benefits of your product? I think very, very important for you to look at that, right? I think we've talked about that for quite lengthily. And then that brings us, as I was saying, to the UVP and the USP, unique selling proposition or unique value proposition, right? What are the elements of this? You should highlight the distinctive features of what you are offering, right? You look at what the customer pain points are and you articulate the specific benefit of you solving that pain point. All of these things should come through in what you are claiming to be your UVP. This should come through in your pitch. So note that it's actually following on from key element 1 all the way to 4 right now, and we're still going, right? Then, very important, have a really intimate understanding of what your business model is. I can never overemphasize this, and that's one of the biggest things that funders complain about is that when they have an SME in front of them, that SME very often doesn't understand what their business model is. They don't even understand what it means. What does business model mean? So that's very important, folks. Understand what business model means and understand what your business model is, right? So let's talk about it. What are the revenue streams, right? How does your company actually generate its money, right? Does it sell product? Does it sell a service at a fee? Does it have a subscriptions model? How exactly do you make your money? That should come through in your pitch when you are talking to your funders. Also understand, how do you price? You need to be able to explain your pricing model. And is that pricing model sustainable to your chosen target market? Are you pricing yourself out of the market, perhaps because one of them will come through and say, but how come you're selling your product at $4.99? There are others who are selling the same product that you have at $2.99. Why is yours so expensive? You need to explain that. First of all, you need to have known that there are some people that are pricing at $2.99. And then you need to explain why yours is $4.99 as opposed to the one that is $2.99. And it is explainable because remember, we are selling value very often, right? I remember in my days as a salesperson, I often never wanted to discuss the price up front. I always wanted to first discuss the value that the service or product was bringing to the potential customer before we even discussed pricing, because pricing was very often the very last thing. And it worked all the time because once you've actually explained or you have demonstrated how it's going to make a person's life easier, the price tag really becomes unconsequential because the value attached to the relief of a particular pain is much bigger than what you are going to pay for whatever product has been put in front of you. Very important. So what I'm saying there is be able to explain and to articulate the kind of pricing model that you have chosen and why you have gone for that, right? And then also look at perhaps including pricing tiers, right? this type of package that includes maybe just 3 things will be this much. When we include that and that and that service, we increase by another 10% or 15%. And then we, excuse me, when we have what we call maybe the deluxe package, that's now the premium pricing. And when people understand that, they'll understand why you've priced the way you have. And then also understand and then also articulate how these pricing tiers align with your identified customer segments. Very important as well, right? So very detailed and very, very important for you to understand how that could work in front of a potential funder. You must also have a very intimate understanding of your costs. The cost structure of either your business or the particular service you're looking at is extremely important, right? You must detail what the cost of the goods sold is. How do you acquire your customer? What is the price that is attached to your customer acquisition, and all the other expenses that go with operating this particular venture that you are pitching for them to fund, right? Very important. Please, guys, I can never overemphasize this. You have to understand your costs. And you can't really, it doesn't matter if you're pitching in front of a funder or not, you really can't run a business without understanding what your expenses are. You really have to understand how your expenses are behaving and at what level they get to. So you can also monitor them and try and interrogate. In a month where they become more, you need to also understand why they're becoming more, right? So I digress a bit, but I'm just saying, trying to emphasize why this element will be important to the funder. They want to know if you are actually capable of running the business that you are saying you're running. And understanding your costs is going to be a huge demonstrator of this, right? Is your business scalable? Is your idea scalable, right? You need to demonstrate if you are able to actually scale it and support long-term growth. And I think but just to reiterate that, you need to demonstrate if the business or the idea that you have is scalable, right? Is it something that can be supported for long-term growth, right? Is it something that has long-term growth? And then I was also explaining and emphasizing the fact that with entrepreneurs, it's not always that someone starts a business because they want it to go on forever and ever. Others start businesses with the sole purpose of selling it off at some point. So how they treat this business is different from how they treat a business that they want to get longevity and make into a legacy business. So there are some people who will come in and say, I have this really fantastic idea. I'm going to grow and scale it up for the next 5 to 10 years. After that, some even go up to just 5 years. After 5 years, they sell it off, they start the next venture. And the cycle starts again. And your funders need to also understand where you are going with this. Very often important to understand what it is that you are wanting to derive from the business so you can articulate it properly to your funders and your audience. The business model must also clearly indicate what your market positioning is, and your business must be positioned alongside market size data to show what the potential is for that business and how relevant it is to that market that you've chosen. Very important for you to demonstrate and show that. Okay. So the sixth element that you need to look at is, what is the opportunity? What is it really something, this thing that you are really pursuing, this business that you are wanting to get, is there really an opportunity for this business? Or are you just one of those people who are following something that is a love of your heart? However, there's no business there, right? And I've heard this being said very often on Dragon's Den, right? They'll say, I really like you. You're a really good entrepreneur. I think you know what you're doing. However, I think the market that, or the business that you've chosen doesn't really have legs. I don't think there's an opportunity for this market, for the business that you've chosen. And for that reason, I'm not going to invest, right? I don't know how many times I've heard that, but it's very important for you to articulate what the market opportunity is so that your funder understands where you're coming from. So look at the total addressable market that you have, and of that total addressable market, what is actually the serviceable available market? And of the serviceable available market, what is the obtainable market? So you've got the total market, and then the market that is serviceable, and then you've got the market that is obtainable. Be very clear about that so that you are able to articulate that to your funders. When the question comes, you must be able to answer it. But more than that, be able to present it and demonstrate that you've actually done your research and you've done your work right up front, right? And then look at the growth trends of your market, right? Highlight insights into the trends, right? Explain what the external drivers are, and also what the growth potential is for that market that you are targeting, right? Okay. And then you look at your competitive landscape when you are making your pitch. Analyze the environment and also identify who are your competitors, who are the key competitors, and why are they your key competitors. And often it becomes even more compelling when you can actually try to show what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are against your business, right? Always pit yourself against them to say, okay, they are my competitor. However, this is how I have one up on them. However, they have one up on me because of XYZ. So be very honest and very candid about that. Then look at what the target customer demand. And then with that, always have real data, right? Don't assume, don't make sweeping statements, don't make vague statements. Be very clear. Be very clear that you've actually quantified, you've done enough research, or you've at least consulted research that is valid, and you can be able to make sound decisions based on that. And then also the market opportunity must be scalable, and it must be viable, right? How is it going to sustain this business, this opportunity? Is it actually going to be able to sustain the kind of investment that we want to make into the business? And then you must also link this to your financial forecasts and the projections that you have for growth. Okay. Very often, something that a lot of SMEs forget to do is to include something to do with the traction of their idea, the traction of their service, the traction of their business, right? What do I mean by that? It's if it's something that is already in in motion, how has it moved from the time that you started it and where you are now? If it is a 5-year business that wants to go to the next level, how did you start? Where did you start? How have you grown through the years? What has been the year-on-year growth? I'm going to make another reference to Dragon's Den that always says, okay, so when did you start this business? How much did you make in the first year? How much did you make in the second? And so on and so forth. Because what they're trying to do there is to see if there's any market validation. Have you actually been able to grow? Is this something that has legs? Right. As I mentioned, the key metrics that you need to look out for there is things like your recurring sales, the revenue, how your users are engaging with your product, and also the rate at which you are acquiring customers. If from the time you started to date, you've only acquired 5 clients and it has been 3 years, and it's a fairly low value product, that becomes a problem. If it's a high value product, it may be that 5 is a very good number. So context is also very important for you to demonstrate that. Some of the milestones that you also need to, demonstrate the milestones that you have achieved, or the milestones that you must achieve. So I'm talking in the context of either a business that is already existing or a business that is yet to exist, where you are actually maybe in front of an angel or a venture capitalist, an angel investor or a venture capitalist. You've got this big idea, and these are the things that you're wanting to do, and you're now trying to explain what your milestones could possibly be. Things like, when are you going to launch the project, the product, or the service? What strategic partnerships are you going to have? And what awards do you think you should be getting? And on the other side, if it's a product that, if it's a service or a business that has already been in existence, you're looking at when you launched the product, what strategic partnerships you've actually been able to broker and obtain, what awards have you received, if any, and what progress have you made in terms of gaining recognition on the market. User testimonials are also very important to show market validation and traction. Very often I say to my SMEs, get a reference letter for every single job you do. If you're a service provider, it's very important. It's going to demonstrate how many people have experienced your job, your service, and how many people are actually likely to call you back or to recommend you to somebody else. That will be enough to show that you are actually good for the money. Market validation is, again, demonstrating that your product has a real market that it is addressing. There's a real market need for it to be able to be launched and to also be able to grow. Visual representation is also very, very important in demonstrating traction and validation. You should also, when you are actually putting together your pitch, make sure that you've got very good visual representation, like charts, graphs. On the right there, I'm showing like a sales, needle, where the product has just basically gone from 0 to 100, and it's just really, blasting off, it's rocketing off. Those kinds of things are quite powerful. Be very careful that when you are actually using those visuals, you are you are using visuals that speak to the figures that you are claiming. because you don't want to show one thing and your figures are saying something else. Okay, right. The really big issue, your financial projections. No investor is going to touch you unless you can actually show them the money, right? How is it going to pan out with the business that you say you want to um, embark on? What are the financial projections for your business, right? And these are some of the things that you should look at. Look at the revenue projections. Look at what incomes you are going to be expecting, and this will always show scalability and the potential of you being able to generate more revenue, right? Often, always people overlook expenses. Look at what expenses you are going to be incurring in the whole process of ensuring that this business gets a lot of revenue, right? In operational expenses, investments in growth, all of those things, including marketing expenses, staff expenses, equipment expense, all of those things are very important for you to show and demonstrate. And with every expense, it must actually speak to the revenue. So if we're going to make 100 million in year X, right? How are we going to be supporting that 100 million? How many staff do we need to make that? How many branches do we need to open to make that? How much stock do we need? And I'm talking, you can see I'm talking about product. If it is services, how are we going to disperse our teams to ensure that we are able to bring in that revenue? All those things need to talk to each other. Cash flow statements are also very important in your financial projections. You need to actually understand how cash is going to move. You must be able to track it and to highlight the company's ability to manage healthy cash flows, because that is also going to be a key winning factor for funders. Profit and loss projections also show projected profitability by deducting expenses from anticipated revenues. How are you going to manage that whole process? Okay. Some key metrics that you also need to demonstrate and be on the ready to answer things around what is your gross margin. I saw a video where it was quite shocking. Someone didn't understand the difference between gross margin and net margin, right? Gross margin and net profit. And they kept on going, okay, no, that's the profit. No, that's the revenue. No, that's the it then just demonstrates that you actually don't know what you're talking about. What is the gross margin? What is your net income? And other operational metrics should be able to be brought to the fore for you to understand or to demonstrate how you are going to ensure that this business is a success. Very, very important. And it also shows that you are in tune and you understand what your business is about. Now, the eighth element of a winning pitch to funders is you need to have a marketing plan. How are you going to go to the market? You must have a go-to-market strategy that shows exactly what it is you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and when. Talk about who the target market is going to be. Talk about what the channels are going to be that you're going to use. And it must make sense based on the business that you are proposing and the business that you are asking to be funded. Look at what the competitive landscape is. Very important. You would have done enough research to show whether you want to still play in that same competitive landscape, or you want to take another route to sort of, blindside your competitors. Those are all strategies that you would have to demonstrate in your pitch and in your presentation. And then you must also demonstrate how your cost and conversion projections are going to work, right? What is your customer acquisition cost? And what is the expected conversion rate? You get the lead and you qualify the lead. You then are able to take them down through the whole process of also pitching to them, doing demos and all of that, and then convert them to a buying customer. You need to demonstrate how that is going to happen. When you have a business that is already running, it's very important to also demonstrate how you have done that historically. Okay. You need to also look at the growth timelines, right? Explain your strategy and how it will evolve as your business will scale, right? Have very clear revenue projections and milestones around that. Very, very important. Very important growth timeline. So, for example, you can say, if we get this funding for the next 12 months, this is what we will be doing. And after 18 months, we're expecting to be at a revenue of X per month or per annum, right? Very important. Or it can be measured in terms of, if we have this cash injection from you, the funder, we expect to have a customer base of X number of customers, right? And those are the things that you really need to demonstrate in terms of showing your growth timeline, right? What is your competitive advantage when you are talking about your go-to-market strategy, right? What is going to make your approach more effective than your competitors? How are you going to demonstrate a unique value proposition, right? How is it that people are actually going to go for your product and not for another client's product, another customer's competitor's product? Sorry. All right. Then, sorry, that should be 9. I'm saying 10 here, from 8 to 10. It actually should be number 9. Team and expertise, that's going to have to be really demonstrated. No one wants to give money to a business with someone who actually doesn't know how to run the business that they are claiming to want to embark on. And also, if it's a business that's already running, you need to actually demonstrate experience and expertise that will show, okay, we've been in this industry for 5 years. I, as the founder, had actual prior experience to opening this business. I have actually worked, or I've played in that and that and that field, and that's given me the necessary skill to be able to do what I am doing now. Very important for you to highlight, right? We spoke about the relevant expertise, and we need to also talk about the successes that you have, be able to measure them, right? It's very important to use the data to be able to demonstrate the successes that you've had. Things around sales, right? How many product launches have you had? How much sales have you generated over the years? How many customers have you been able to onboard over the years? Very important. Also, the team must have clear roles. Each member must have a clear role and how they actually contribute to this whole business that you have. And you must also show that there are no overlaps, there's no confusion. Always speaks also to your the business process mapping, where you know exactly what follows on from where and who is the owner of each level or each juncture. Very important for you to show that, right? With a good business, there should be very good leadership as well, right? You must show that this ship has a sound captain. It's not just free falling or free sailing, because that is very, very bad for funders, it makes them very nervous. So demonstrate that you have a leader who very often make sure that you can demonstrate that it's not their first rodeo. They've done this before and they've succeeded at it, right? A brief understanding, a brief bio of each of your people in leadership roles should be able to suffice so you can be able to demonstrate the expertise that you have on board. And also design and presentation of your team and expertise pitch or deck. You should be able to clearly demonstrate your people on a clean sheet. Very often headshots are enough. Have a clean layout that will show, look, this is who it is, this is what they've done, this is their title, this is what they do for the business. This should be number 10, and we are saying the ask. What are you asking for, right? You've given us this whole big story about this is the problem that we have identified. This is how we are actually going to be addressing the problem. And this is what we found to be the business opportunity. This is how we are going to market it, etc., etc. Now, tell us, how are we fitting in as funders? How are we fitting into this whole scheme? What are you asking for? Be very clear about how much it is that you want. Be very clear about what you're going to use the money for. Be very clear. Sometimes it's actually important to say, we would like 3 million, right? I'm giving you an example. We would like 3 million. However, in the first 18 months, we will only need 1.2. Once we have gotten to the end of the first 18 months, we will then ask you to disperse an extra, the remaining 1.8 million, right? Very clear and understanding, and that will show milestones and goals of what you intend to do at every juncture, right? And also have a visual representation to break down how you're going to use the funds. And sometimes you can say, we're going to purchase this with these funds, and then we're going to purchase this product or this equipment, and the remaining funds will be for operating costs, or for marketing is also operating costs, by the way, for operating costs, and then and this is how we would like it to be phased into the whole scheme of things, right? And then also give contextual information. So give relevant context that will also give the funders an understanding of how previous funding rounds or traction or gains that you've had in previous fundings that you've probably had before, right? But then also demonstrate your financial needs at that point, so that you can then be able to give them an understanding of where this whole ask fits in. I'm going to riddle through this quite fast. I'm really sorry about this. We had very bad interference from technology, but I just want to leave you with a quick run through of the pitch, delivery, and communication, right? Have really good personal present for effective personal presentation. If you're called to a pitch, make sure you arrive on time. Make sure you're looking right. And when I say grooming, I'm not saying it must be stereotyped. You must all wear a jacket and tie or wear whatever. I've seen very successful pitches, someone wearing their chef's uniform, someone wearing their PPE uniform, right? Depending on what trade you are in, but just be presentable so that you don't put off your funders, because I know funders can get put off by that. I've actually seen that on Dragon's Den, where they've actually torn the the presenter apart for coming dressed in a way that they felt was not appropriate. And in fact, it was inappropriate actually. Understand what the dress code is. Nothing stops you from asking, is there a way I'm expecting to, I am expected to dress? If not, can I just come, the way that I rock up at work, right? Your personality is very important, right? I know that we all have different personalities, but it's very important to be engaging with your audience so that you can be able to endear yourself to them. Because remember, people do business with people they like. And very often I've heard, I like you, I think I'm going to back you, right? Based on the fact that you think that the person in front of you has what it takes, and that comes through in their personality, right? The elements of effective communication in the delivery of your pitch. Use your body language when you fold your hands, when you recede into the background, not very good. Be forthcoming, be confident, make sure that people understand that you are there to convince them to do business and to really deliver a winning pitch. Your tone is also very important. Don't shout at people. Don't be overconfident or what we call being pompous, right? Don't be demeaning of other businesses, and also don't be apologetic. I think it's very important to strike a balance in knowing that the people that are on the other side are actually humans, and they will respond to whatever you're putting out to them. Be clear when you're talking. Don't swallow your words. Some people speak under their breath, right? Because granted, not everyone is good at public speaking, but it's very important for you to always practice. Practice, practice, practice. If you're going to make a pitch, if you're going to pitch in front of funders, practice. Make sure you're clear and everybody can hear and understand what you are saying. I mentioned this. Have confidence. Be confident in what you are saying. Be confident in the fact that you are delivering a pitch that has a really good business and you want everybody to buy in. They must see what you are seeing, right? So very important for you to come to bring that through. Some tips that I can share with you quickly. Have a structured delivery, as I have laid it out to you. It's very important for you to take people, the funders, through a journey, through stages, because then that really helps them in ordering their thoughts about who you are, about what it is you're giving to them, right? Tailor your pitch to your audience. Make sure that you understand who you are pitching to, what is important to them. Some funders want you to demonstrate how many jobs you're going to create. Some want to demonstrate, are you actually including any form of AI? How are you going to be treating technology? What it is that you're going to be doing about including women in your workforce? All of those things are things you need to research up front so that you can understand what you can say to appeal to them and bring them on board, right? Build materials. Must always prepare your pitch deck with well-crafted slides, and don't make them too text heavy. It's better to just have one prompting word and then be able to talk to that. Having text heavy slides is a turn off, because now people are reading what you've put up instead of listening to you and really taking in what you are telling them. Always keep it concise, right? Remember that attention spans can be very short for most people that are on the other side. Their attention spans are very often short because they're busy people. They want to get to the next engagement, get through it, and that's where you usually come up with things like an elevator pitch, right? An elevator pitch, it comes from the notion that you one day meet a very important CEO that you've been trying to meet. You meet them in the elevator, and now you only have 1 minute to tell them about your business, from the time that you get into that elevator to the time that the doors open and he gets out on his floor, right? Very important for you to understand what are the things that you should say. If you don't say anything else, he must at least hear this. Those are the things that you must really zone in on. Practice and refine, like I said, you can never overdo that. Make sure that your delivery is on point, and also this will build confidence in yourself, so you can be able to deliver a good pitch all the time. It's not necessary to use big words. As someone once said, very expensive English. It's not necessary unless you're dealing with a very technical audience whom you know are going to understand, especially in the engineering field and other, very technical fields. It is not necessary to use very big terms or language that is loaded with too much technicalities. Just be clear and concise and to the point, and make sure that your audience understands what you're saying. Like I said, make sure your presentation is not text heavy. A little bit of a tip also, sometimes if you are looking at, if you're presenting a presentation, a pitch online, sometimes you can have a deck with content so that you can be able to send to the investors in case that they want to look at it some more, right? So you have a deck where it's just the one word, and you're talking to it. And if they say to you, look, we want to get a little bit more, give me an understanding of, exactly, I want to be able to look at what you have told us. Then have something on the side that then unpacks your slides a little bit more, so that when you send it to them, they understand what you are talking about.